we appreciate you joining us tonight. I'll just briefly summarize the agenda as I've been doing probably ad nauseum members over the last year and a half, but tonight's agenda includes a public hearing on the 2022 through 2026 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We have some of our community services staff in the audience tonight. Elizabeth Renault, Jennifer Zangline, and Tammy Doring, as well as our planning consultant from McKenna, Vidya Krishnan, to talk about that project. We'll have a public hearing on that, and then during that public hearing, there will be a presentation. Following the closing of the public hearing, there will also be a request for the planning commission to recommend that goes forward to the board. And then the other new action item on tonight's agenda is to consider a tree removal permit at 39670 E-Course Road. Those are the only items formally on tonight's agenda. So just keep that in mind. If there are any comments about items other than those items, we'll be happy to speak about those at a different time. But with that being said, I will.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Did you just ask if there were any comments?
We have two items that are formally on the agenda for comment tonight. One is a tree removal permit, and one is for a parks and recreation plan. And if you're here for any other items, there will be a time for you to make comment as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So with that, we can turn the meeting over to our chair, Brian Kelly.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Charter Township of Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 12th, 2022, 7:30 p.m. Roll call for attendance, please.
Jeff Jar.
Here.
Brian Cullen.
Here.
Medina Atkinson. Here. Kelly Barr. Here. Sherry Bud. Here. Brian Kelly.
I am here. So we have a proposed agenda before us this evening. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support. We have a motion by Commissioner Atkinson, a support by Commissioner Cullen. Do you have any comments or questions on the motion? If there are none, all in favor to approve the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries. Our next item is approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on December 8th, 2021.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of December the 8th, 2021.
We get a motion from Commissioner Bud. Support from Commissioner Jar. Any comments or discussion regarding the motion? Seeing as we have no comments or discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing as there is no opposed, that motion now passes. That brings us up to our public hearing for this evening. The 2022 to 2026 Parks and Recreation Master Plan, Van Buren Township Department of Community Services seeks to present and receive public comment on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The plan is going to be presented to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation to the Township Board of Trustees. The last plan was adopted by the Board of Trustees in 2016. Recreation plans must be adopted by Van Buren Township to be eligible for state and federal recreation grants. We have a motion to open the public hearing on this.
Move to open the public hearing for item number 1.
Motion by Commissioner Jar. Do I have support?
Support.
Support from Commissioner Cullen. Any comments or discussion? All in favor to open the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are open for our public hearing. So we have comments from Tenant Associates, and I'll put a presentation on this. Ms. Kristen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, and members of the audience. It's good to see you all after a really long time in person. At the start of the meeting, if you hear me occasionally coughing between, please don't worry. I just had a severe allergy. I'm tested for everything. I'm fine. I just have pet hair allergy, so it's continuing to itch my throat. So please don't get it picked out if I start suddenly having cough. So what you have before you tonight is the 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan for Van Buren Township. This is required under DNR and under state law if the township wants to be eligible for recreational grants. We sent it out for a 30-day comment period, which ended as of yesterday. And we also did a 15-day public hearing notice. Unlike the master plan for the township, the Parks and Recreation Plan under state rules just has an open comment period. It is not as rigid as the actual master plan. The state does not require that the Parks and Recreation Plan come before the Planning Commission for recommendation. Most municipalities directly send the plan on to the Board of Trustees. However, in Van Buren Township, we have always maintained a very transparent approval process. So the township would like to get feedback from the Planning Commission, which is the body that actually makes all the rules and encourages projects and proposals. So we are following a procedure wherein we are bringing it before the Planning Commission for a public hearing, which is not the typical steps that is required under state law. It also looks really good when you submit for a grant to the DNR to say that our Planning Commission has actually looked at this plan and they support it. So this plan is here before this body tonight for a public hearing and to receive any input. Subsequently, it is going before the Board of Trustees for their meeting to be held on the 18th of January, at which time there will be another public hearing. And during this time period, we can still make changes to the plans, any edits or any additions that we may want. We will then submit this to the DNR through their web portal, because that's the only way they accept the plans. And this will be valid for the next 5 years. The submittal date to reach DNR is February 1st, and we'll be working with the Township's Recreation Department to make sure that we turn it in by the deadline in order to make that happen. Now, I'll go over some of the key elements of this plan. And the first one I would go to is the demographics. That is one of the most key aspects of any plan. How did the population of the community change? Because that's what gives you an idea of what the needs of the population are. We were able to get the data from the 2020 census, which actually shows that Van Buren's population has increased by 5% since the last census review was done. And in the next 25 years, it is anticipated to increase by another 19% or so. So the population growth is significantly projected for the township. Now, if you look at the growth curve, what I'm doing is I'm actually going to the respective pages of the plan itself. So if you want to, in future, look at the data further, you can just go on to those pages and for yourself, take a look at the actual numbers of how the population has grown. So if you look at the summary that's on page 15 of the plan, it actually shows a significant growth in households to be projected over the next 10 to 20 years. Now, this growth is mainly going to be in the 5 to 17-year age group and in the 65 to 85-year age group. Those retirees who, after working their whole life, now actually have some leisure time on their hands to be able to use the recreational amenities, and also young children. These are the key groups that are going to increase in population, which makes adoption of an updated parks and recreation plan very, very important. Now, once we go through all of the demographics, you can see that the second key component of a parks and recreation master plan is the administrative organization. We have a very robust organization in the township for our parks and recreation. We have the citizens who are the key people whom this whole plan is serving. We have a director of community services who works under the township supervisor and under the board of trustees. We do have other advisory groups. Our entire park and recreation structure was reorganized in 2021. Around May 2021, the entire structure of the township's parks and rec department was reorganized. And right now we have a director of community services, under whom we have a director of recreation and a director of parks. This ensures that we have covered all the bases and make sure that every aspect of the parks and recreation master plan is paid attention to by a specific person. If we further scroll, if you look at it, one of the key elements of this plan is the staff and the volunteers. They form a critical part of this whole process. The volunteers have a relationship with the township, and they are also the stakeholders, and they can be anybody from local area museums, the schools, the county, basically anybody who would use it. Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Momentary on hand. As part of the administrative section of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the state requires the chapters that are included in the Park and Recreation Master Plan are decided by DNR. In order to successfully be able to apply for a grant in the future, you do need to have these individual chapters and all of this information included in it. So now I have my 1 minute. I just need the TV to start coming on. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. This particular section also goes on to include what the budget for the Parks and Rec plan is, and it also goes in to include what the grant history is. The plan basically includes details of all the projects that have previously been awarded to the township, what the awarding entity was, and what was built with it. For instance, we got a mini grant from MDNR for the Iron Belt Trail, so some aspects of the trail project were done using that. The main portion of the Iron Belt Trail, the saddle, which cost $500,000, that was through a Wayne County CDBG fund grant that we got. So the plan, DNR expects to see what are the grants that were previously awarded and where the money was used and what project it was used for. So this particular section of the Parks and Rec Master Plan includes all of that background information. The next section of the plan that we go to is an inventory of all the recreational facilities that are there in the township. Now, these recreational facilities are classified based upon their size. The smallest being mini parks. Mini parks are basically pocket parks or neighborhood parks. Those that have to be within a quarter-mile distance from a dwelling or a neighborhood. Basically walking distance. Anytime it goes more than a quarter mile, it is considered as something needing a vehicle or an automobile to get to. It no longer qualifies as a mini park. So we have mini park facilities, we have community parks and facilities which are larger in size. Natural resource areas, which include the French Landing Park, the Viscount Woods Park, the Rick Heritage Park. All of the school facilities are also considered as recreational amenities. And finally, regional parks and facilities, which would be the Lower Huron Metro Park and the Rossington Road DNR boat launch. These also form an important component of all the recreational facilities that are available. This map has been updated and includes all of the facilities today that exist in the township for recreation available. One of the recent additions was the addition of the Pickleball School, and that is actually considered as a mini park. Mini park is categorized based on the area, and it is used to serve the older demographic, and it is my understanding that park has been really successful. Now, when we have these parks, one of the things DNR looks at is accessibility of the parks. Now, when we say accessibility, it doesn't merely mean we are talking about barrier-free access. Parks, besides being accessed by those who are disabled, they also need to be accessible to those who are differently able. Say somebody just needs extra help with a stroller. You need to be able to take the stroller in there. Those who are possibly visually impaired. There are so many different types of challenges for accessibility, and they are categorized by DNR. And we have to rate each of our parks based upon where they meet DNR's requirements for accessibility. For the most part, most of our recreation facilities are good, except for a few that are in the 2 and 3 range. The one park that does require significant improvement is the French Landing Park, which is rated 1 on 5, which is the poorest rating in Canada. So basically, categorizing the accessibility rating on a 1 to 5 scale gives the DNR the ability to see where can we give them funds. If they were to give the township a grant, they can decide, okay, accessibility is a key factor, and this particular park is rated very low. So that's where the grant will be given. This helps in evaluating where exactly the project stands. Now, the next section that is of significance in the Parks and Rec plan is a survey of all the regional parks and recreation facilities. We have a lot. Overall, the total number is 61, and the way DNR asks us to count the regional parks and facilities is a 60-mile radius. So this number that you see here is actually a 60-mile radius. So basically, within a 60-mile radius, we have 64 different types of recreational amenities. Anything from regional parks to the smallest of recreation facilities, all of those are considered as serving this region. So that is another key component of it also. At this time, the Iron Belt Trail, which was one of the biggest recreation projects, the most expensive and most challenging in terms of engineering, most of it has been completed except for 2 small sections, I believe. And if funding is available or we are able to secure grants, it is a hope that that will be built in 2024-25. The plan also includes information on bicycle lanes. Non-motorized pedestrian pathways are a very important recreational component. With current times, COVID times, lots of people have taken up cycling. I don't know if the members noticed, once COVID hit last year, none of the stores had bicycles available, no matter how much you wanted to pay, including Amazon, which was like unbelievable. You couldn't buy a bike even if you wanted to. A lot of people took to outdoor recreation, and exploring the neighborhoods and the parks on bike was one of the most popular ways to do it. So non-motorized pedestrian pathway and bike paths have always been a key component, now more important than ever. And the bicycle lane info that is included in this plan is straight from the master plan. The master plan touches on parks and recreational amenities a little bit. However, that is one of the key components of this plan, and the information has been included in it. One of the other things that we believe the parks are used for is not just various sports. It is also for special events, which make a difference to the community. The parks are typically areas where you can host father-daughter dance, mother-son dance for anything, summer concert series, kids coloring, holiday arts and crafts show. It's basically where the community gathers en masse. So the parks also serve as a public event space, making them all the more important for accessibility, for being placed in a convenient manner for all and within reach of all of the citizens. Now, while we know what the community needs, we come to the most important thing. What is the basis for an action plan, and what is the action plan? We know what we have, we know what we want, how do we get there? Now, what we have found, I will scroll slightly forward and then I will come back to this. What we have found is, when you look at all the existing parks and facilities, mini parks are essential for every neighborhood, and that I told you was a quarter-mile radius. These yellow circles represent the quarter-mile walkability radius. We do have a lot of neighborhoods that do not have any mini parks. In order for the residents of those parks to go for any recreation, even if they want to walk with their children, they actually have to get into their car and they don't have to drive. So one of the focus is, this is how we evaluate it. DNR has got a structure whereby they list out if a municipality has got so much land area and has got such population, they need to have so many acres of parklands. Van Buren has a surplus land for parks and recreation of 540 acres. We actually have a parkland surplus versus the population. And the reason this is because under DNR standards, they include the regional park system. The lower Buren Metro Park is counted as part of the facilities for Van Buren. So technically, if you go by the book, we have a surplus of parkland. However, when you analyze the neighborhoods, we are deficient in mini parks. Based upon the analysis, each mini park is considered anything that is up to half acre in size, and we are deficient in at least 3 acres worth of mini parks, which gives the Township Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees the ability to plan in the future. If ever there is a need to acquire land to create as a park, they know which are the neighborhood or which are the areas to target for it to serve the residents who currently don't have that facility available to them. For the past 20 years, the state DNR was using the same standards to evaluate all parks and recreation facilities. Over the last year, they completely changed their methodology of how they're going to make the determination based on population range, how the demographics have changed, and how the needs of the community in terms of quality of life factors have changed over a period of time. And that evaluation is also included in, as facilities analysis. So DNR has some kind of formula they've come up with, where if you have so many people, you need to have so many basketball courts. If you have so many people, you need to have so many soccer fields. There is an evaluation metric. For example, based on that evaluation metric, for the number of residents we have in Buren Township, we need 4 public basketball courts. We have 6. By the same metric, we do need at least 1 dog park. We don't have any. We do need at least 1 skate park. We don't have any. We need a community pool, and that's something we don't have. Whereas we do have the number of soccer fields we need. We have added in the pickleball courts. We do have volleyball courts. So we are meeting some of our recreation needs very well, and there are other gaps that we can fill in. When we went through the evaluation with the community, we had public engagement sessions, and these public engagement sessions was done through online and through social media last October, November of 2021. In the last Parks and Rec Master Plan, we received 120 responses. This time we received 130. So around the same, just slightly more. It was a little challenging to get the information out because that was a time when people just had to either fill it out online or get us the feedback. But the feedback that we got was really good. Based upon the responses that we received, the top request was for a community pool. That was the number 1 request by the residents. And the second one was a dog park. I think pets are now an integral part of most families. So having a recreational amenity that serves the pets is considered as an important component for most residents. And finally, programming. People want to see more events organized in these parks, like say a Zumba class or group yoga event or group stretch exercises, something that people can just drop in and do together as a group. There was significant interest in actually having it. There are changes also they would like to existing parks. There's always a request for more restrooms in parks, especially if you have parks with facilities where you have lots of little children. Bathrooms are always very important, and improved lake access, the ability to access the lake and go canoeing. Those were some of the other top requests and feedback that was obtained through the public engagement session. Now, the next step from the public engagement was the action plan, which was the goals and objectives. So like any master plan, in order to implement the master plan, you need to have goals. You have an inventory of what you have. You have feedback on what you need or what you would like. Now, how are you going to accomplish that? You need to set your goals and objectives of how you're going to get to that goal. And that's what this section of the plan is. A good portion of the goals and objectives are similar to what were there in our last Parks and Rec plan. And I have worked in the field of planning long enough to see that Buren has got one of the best implementation abilities. I have seen where master plan recommendations have translated into zoning actions. I have seen parks and rec plans actually translated into reality. It's been one of the most successful communities that I have worked to. And it's really nice to see that when there are goals and objectives set for the community, the board, the stakeholders actually act on it and make it into a reality. It's not merely a book that is being done in order to meet state requirements. So the goals and strategies are outlined over here. Now the goals and strategies don't mean much if we don't know how we are going to pay for it. And that is where we come into the capital improvements program. The capital improvements program outlines projects, since this is a 5-year plan from 2022 to 2026. It outlines the projects earmarked for each year. What is the estimated cost and what is the possible funding source? Where are we going to get it? Is it going to be from general funds? Is this going to be a DNR grant? Maybe we will apply for CDBG grants, or some can even come through donations, corporate donations. So while DNR requires you to have a capital improvements plan by year, you do have the ability to shift them around. Say, for instance, in 2024, we have the plan to do the 2 small parts of the Ironville Trail that are left. If we happen to get a grant for that, we can move it from 2024 up to 2023 or 2022 and shift another project down there. So within the capital improvements that have been identified, we do have the flexibility of moving these projects around in order to accomplish what we want. This being the key part of the project, the last portion of the Parks and Rec Master Plan are the appendices. And this basically includes all the data that I've just gone over. The plan is being put forth after collection of a lot of data. And this section basically shows you the details of how we arrived at the conclusions as to what is a priority, what is not, how did we determine which parks have an accessibility rating of 1 versus accessibility rating of 5, other additional resources, all the background information you need in order to understand where the Parks and Rec Master Plan is. This plan, once it is submitted to DNR on February 1st, makes the township eligible for the next round of recreational grants. We have had pretty good success in landing some of those grants and doing some of the big projects. So it is our hope once this is turned in with the able hands at the Community Services and Parks and Rec Department, I think any plan that needs to be executed can be successfully done. I did receive comments from Commissioner Jar. Thank you so much for the Parks and Recreation Plan. Some minor typographical corrections, some semantics of arranging them around, and all of the comments are really well placed, and all the changes will be made. At this point of time, I am happy to try and answer any questions that you might have, any feedback that you might have, and if there are any changes or any concerns you have, please feel free to state them, and we can go back and look at it, and we can always add those in before this goes before the Board of Trustees on the 18th. Elizabeth is here tonight, as is Jennifer, and I think they will help me answer any questions if I don't have any immediate answer for you. So if there are no questions, that is Van Buren Township's Park and Recreation Master Plan. Yes, please.
So you was talking about the French Landing Dam, and through your mask, I couldn't quite understand what you was talking about. Was you talking about accessibility, 1 to 5?
Yes.
Can you explain that a little more?
Yes, the French,
I'm sorry, Director Howard, the audience have a way to be picked up by microphones.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile if you.
I can repeat the question.
That's good, yeah.
I'll repeat your question so the audience will know. So,
There will be a dedicated time for comments.
Oh, I thought she opened it up for.
yes, I can try answering it. I think gentleman's question was, what exactly was the issue with regard to the French landing park dam, and if it was an accessibility issue? All the parks within the township are rated on a scale of 1 to 5 with regard to accessibility. And that 1 to 5 scale is designed by DNR. 1 being they're not accessible at all, very poor accessibility. 5 being they're the best. In the township, Van Buren Park is rated a 5. And one of the only facilities that is rated a 1 is the French Landing Park. It is considered as, under DNR standards, it's considered as not meeting their accessibility requirements. Elizabeth, would you be able to enlarge a little bit on?
I mean,
that?
there's a driveway. I mean, what makes it?
Accessible is not just vehicle accessible.
Yeah, and we can look into that a little bit more to explore French Landing. I believe since the last master plan update, and this might have just been overlooked by us, we have done a lot of improvements at French Landing. Last year, phase 1 was complete, which included a trail system throughout the park. We're completing phase 2 this year in 2022, which will include some paved parking areas. So I think once we include all of those updates, the accessibility rating will actually go up. So we'll check out the accuracy of that. I think that might be a little bit outdated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was a great presentation. We are up to public comment. And so if anybody else from the public that has any questions, comments, or you want
want me, do you want me here or by the mic or?
Yeah, it's a good idea to come up to the mic,
Okay.
to make sure we can be catching you on.
If anybody that comes up and speaks to the microphone, if you could please state your name and your address for the notes.
All right, cool. My name's Stephen Dark from 8804 Ironwood. My first thing is actually a comment on an error I think I noticed on one of the population charts. There's one spot where it's like, it says the 2010 to the 2019 range, but it states the projected 2024 percentage instead. My next question was, is anything going to be done about the pavilion at Court Park next to the soccer ball fields?
Hi there. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Do you want to swap them?
Yeah.
We're gonna be Mike
I know.
swapping tonight.
It's gonna be a little interesting question. Shift question.
Yeah, no, I feel like it should be like a game show where it's like you got the
I
whole
know.
set, stick the long microphone out.
All right, well, thank you. So Court Park, we're looking at all of our parks. I have an extra thick mask, I apologize. But we're looking at all of our parks. And right now, looking at 2022, we're going to be replacing 2 of the pavilions at Van Buren Park. And we're working on grant money to get that paid for. It is part of our budget, but we are always looking for grant money to cover these different projects. So Court Park is definitely one that we're going to be looking at in the future. We've made a lot of improvements at that park. We do try to, look at the different parks and kind of meet those more immediate needs. It's got a definite good structure, does need some TLC, and that's something we're going to be looking at in the future.
Alright.
Thank you for bringing it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, the pavilion, I think is the biggest thing. It's kind of this old like wood structure that's kind of.
Mhm. And that's a very.
Everything there's so new that I feel like that's what really does it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Did you have another part?
All right, cool. And then, okay, I got Mike swapping. My next question was, whatever happened to that, that land that the township acquired from the DNR there on Belleville Road, just north of the bridge? Like
Right.
Belleville?
Yeah, right there.
I always wondered what happened to that, because that was
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, it's a piece of property that we have purchased. We do not have any plans right now to develop it immediately. We have talked about that in the past. And we're really focusing our attention towards our new community center and these other projects we have going right now. So it's not an immediate need that we're jumping into. We're looking at it carefully to see what could be the best use of that property. And we're really focusing our attention on developing plans for our new community center.
Okay.
Yeah, it is still on the radar.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then that kind of ties into the last question. Last question, yeah, sorry. Last question kind of being, if you could, it said that there's some future parks planned, one on Elwell, one on Haggerty. Are there any plans? I saw those that there's a future plan for future parks, which is why I was wondering about the DNR land, why that wasn't
Right.
stated somewhere down the road as a potential new park, so.
Yeah, and those two pieces of property that you mentioned, those are properties that we own. We look at, like Lydia had mentioned, we look at the plan and we look at the township as a whole and look at where we could put some of those mini parks in. We don't have any definite plans for anything at those 2 properties, and as of right now, it's just saying that we do have ownership of, and we're always looking into the future. In Parks and Rec, I feel like I'm already in 2025. We think so far ahead. And that is not in our immediate plans right now, but there may be something down the line. There may be some small parks that go into there. So that's why we're always looking for information from our residents as to what you would like to see right in your own backyard. What kind of amenities would you like close by? Are you looking for places you can bike to and do some passive recreation? Are you looking for areas that maybe there's something dedicated to soccer or disc golf or what? It could be something totally new by then. But we're always looking for those ideas. So Mr. Dark, if you have, ideas that maybe there's something that you would like to see, feel free, or any of our residents, feel free to reach out to the Parks and Rec Department. We're always looking for those great ideas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I would just like to know, basically,
Sorry, could you come up? I know it's a little bit awkward, but.
I'm like taking it over.
No, that's okay. It's all kind of trying to figure out how to.
I like that we
make
kind
things
of.
work. If you could state your name and your address, please.
hi, I'm Dr. Martha Taylor, and I live at 41089 South Interstate 94, Service Drive. And I'm here for two reasons on tonight. One, the French Landing Park, I look at it from my house. And I just wanted to know again what your plans are for that. Should I ask another question that has nothing to do with it?
If it's not to this agenda item, if it's something for later on, or for all kind of like everything.
Okay, but he indicated that I could ask the question after this.
There'll be a spot for general comment.
Okay, then that's all for this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for coming out tonight. You asked about French Landing.
If you could give over a second to answer the question, and then we'll call you next.
Okay, so French Landing Park, and if you have not been out there in a while, there's been some really great improvements out there. There's some really nice walking paths where there used to be an old wooden, broken down, unfortunately, play structure. Now there's a beautiful pavilion. It kind of looks like a lantern almost. It's like a beautiful shape. It's kind of interesting the way it's put together. We will be adding some furniture to that pavilion next spring. We didn't want to put it in when we were heading into the fall and winter season, so it'll come out next spring. There's some raised gardens throughout the park, and that was part of our phase 1. We're going to enter into phase 2 of that project this year, and phase 2 is going to bring us a new fishing dock, and we're also hoping to add, we'll be adding our furniture under the pavilion, but we're also hoping to add maybe a kayak canoe launch. So those improvements are going to make that park look totally different. We're excited. Yeah, we're also adding new signage to our parks, and it's really going to stand out. Once all those improvements are done, people will be able to rent that pavilion, and we've already had requests. So we're looking forward to complete the project, and it'll be available for people to rent and also to use throughout the week and weekend.
What's the durability of that? It looks like it's canvas or something.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is it's like a tensile structure that every so often we have to adjust it. So it's something that we will, it takes a little bit of maintenance, just like anything else. And it's something that our staff will be checking on and keeping maintained throughout the incredible, wonderful seasons we have in Michigan. Yes, do you want to?
Thank you so much.
My question is related to all of those Van Buren parks, but in particular, the one that we're just talking about because, my name is Tim Price. I live at 41190 Lakeview Court, and I too look at French Landing Park and look forward to the kayakers going by the house. My question is related to all the parks, but that one in particular. Is there any plans to put plug-in parking for the parents who drive electric vehicles and plan on staying at the park for a few minutes and can recharge while they're there, for any of the parks in particular?
Well, what an interesting question. Thank you for asking that. This year in 2022, we are going to be working on a master plan for Van Buren Park. So when we are looking at Van Buren Park, we're going to be talking about all different kinds of things as to what's going on at the park right now, the things that we can improve upon. One thing that we talk about all the time, in particular with Van Buren Park, is parking, looking at having dedicated parking areas for the pavilions. And I'm glad you brought that up because that'll definitely be something that we talk about in that park, which anytime you do improvements in a particular place, it brings up that conversation of how can we bring up the standards at the other parks. So that's something that hasn't necessarily been on the radar, but we'll definitely be having conversations Just like we have conversations about including Wi-Fi in the parks and how can we allow there to be charging stations. And there's always something new. There's always a new facet when you're talking about being outside, recreating, allowing people to connect, because there's all different ways that we connect these days. So it's an interesting point, and we'll definitely be talking about that when we talk about our parking situations, which, like I said, when we talk about a particular area, it translates into the other areas. And even when we're talking about our community center, that's something that we can talk about possibly having as an amenity right here at Township Hall. So thank you. We'll keep those comments.
Thank you.
I'm not busy.
My name is Tim Krager. I live at 41166 Lakeview Court. So I found it very interesting that the pool was the #1 item that the community wanted. And that was a big subject of conversation when we was having Zoom meetings with the expansion of the community center. And I don't think that moved forward at all, but knowing that that's the #1 item the community wanted, can we talk upon that, see what, if we are gonna do anything, or is it, too late, or with expansion?
No, it's really interesting. When we talk about the particular amenities, we look at what people want, what people are going to use. And with our community center, we're really trying hard so that paying for this community center isn't something that's going above and beyond the things that we're paying for right now. We've had the discussion where we have had bonds that have come off the books for our fire department, for our fire station, and that kind of frees up some money so we can pay for our community center. We did look into the pool. We talked about it at one of our recreation committee meetings in depth. We had a presentation on it. Adding in a pool doubles the cost of our community center. And me, myself, my name is Jennifer Zangman. I'm the recreation director here at Van Buren Township. I've been in Parks and Rec nearly my entire professional career. It is something that is extremely costly when a community adds a pool. It's, the maintenance is very expensive, running is expensive, there's some liability that you deal with. The main thing that when we looked at this, it was gonna be extremely costly to add a pool. And our residents were asked, if it came to it, would you pay for a pool? And it wasn't popular in order to pay for a pool if they wanted that amenity. It is something that a lot of people say that they do want. We just felt that the cost outweighed the need at this time. So our current community center, of course, we're still in the planning phases. We're not planning on adding a water feature of that type. But who knows? Maybe in the future we will. Maybe we're expanding. You see that our population is increasing, and maybe in the future it will be something that we'll be planning. But as of right now, we're not planning that for this current community center. My body there. Any other questions? And you can always reach out to Parks and Rec.
Do you have any other public comment or questions at this time? Yeah.
Is this the time I can?
So when we finish, we'll call the public hearing out.
Okay.
The public, we will not.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Great presentation. Keep in mind, comments can still come in. There's still.
I just wanted to recognize for the record, we did provide a remote public participation link, which is recommended by our health department. There are no comments on there, but I do think it's important to recognize for the record that we did provide a link remotely for the public, and there's no chat comments, and there is nobody wanting to make a comment on our remote link. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So keep the comments coming. Any more questions or anything? We have no more public comment at this time. We're closing the public hearing, but listen to the whole public hearing. I got a motion by Commissioner Bud, and I support that. All in favor to close the public hearing? Any discussion? Neither none. Any opposed? Then the public hearing is closed, and that will bring us up to new business. Very similar to just what we did with the public hearing, we have the 2022-2026 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Van Buren Township Parks Department Services request the recommendations for the 2022-2026 Parks and Recreation Plan to be submitted to the Township Board of Trustees. Our first item on the list is the presentation by Township Deputy Consultants.
There's really nothing to be said that hasn't already been said, so I can just speak to the process moving forward from here. So depending on the planning commission's recommendation tonight, they can pass a resolution that will be used to make a decision or recommendation to the board of trustees, and next Tuesday at the regular board of trustees meeting, the board will then consider adopting this plan with any edits that are clarified tonight and over the next few days here. So that is the next step, and pending those steps, this recommendation and the adoption, the plan will be ready for use as a guiding document for all of our parks and recreation movements over the next 5 years. Everything else has been well stated by our staffing consultants.
Thank you so much, Director Powell. Again, we have the spot for public comments. I think we've kind of public comments. Do you have any comments from commissioners at this time?
I just would like to thank the folks that have worked on presenting this presentation. Head of Community Services and Parks and Recreation, Elizabeth Bernal, her assistant Tam Doring, and of course the staff from Parks